All right, in this video, we're going to again talk about compound inequalities, but this time they're going to have an or statement. So one or the other has to be true. For example, in order to graduate, let's just say you had to pay me $5 or give me a high five. You give me $5 or give me a high five. So you can graduate if you did one of those things. If you gave me a high five, you could graduate. If you gave me $5, you could graduate. Wouldn't that be interesting? Then if I said, in order to graduate, you must give me $5 and give me a high five. You'd have to give me both. So that we did in another video. This time we're talking about the or. So the solution has to work for one or the other. It doesn't have to be both. Let's take a look what that is like. Please look at the get more math side. Notice -4 is greater than 4 plus x. Or you have another part to the inequality, -6x is less than 7. So either your numbers have to work for this inequality or they have to work for the one on the right. So I'm going to recopy those on my scrap paper. I'm going to solve each of those, and I'll show you what to do then after that. Okay, so on the right side, I already rewrote the two different parts of the inequality. I solved each of these for x. And notice the one on the right, I had to reverse the sign because I divided by a negative on both sides. Now, when I go to write this and tap this into my GMM, I'm going to start with the lesser of those two. So I have -8 and I have x. So since it's an or statement, I've got to put an or in between. I can't combine them like we did with the and, because and means they both have to work at the same time. Here we do. So the way I'm going to write it is, I'm going to do it on my scrap paper first. I'm going to move my x to the left. When I do that, I reverse the sign. So I want all numbers that are less than -8, or I want all numbers that are greater than -1 and 1/6. So I need both of these to be written with an or in between. Let me take a second and type that in. Okay, it's typed in. Let's just double check. X is less than -8. I could have kept it as -8 is greater than x, but I always like to put the variable first in an or statement. Or the x's have to be greater than -1 and 1/6. So I have that. Let's see if I got it right. Again, if there's a red dot, I have to go back to my work on the right-hand side and see where I made a mistake. Now I need to make sure that the graph has the correct number in the correct place. -8 is definitely less than -1 and 1/6. Now, these are two separate statements. I want all the numbers that are less than -8. So that means I want an unshaded circle, and they have to be less. So I tap to the left. Or they're greater than -1 and 1/6. So -1 and 1/6, empty circle because they can't be equal to, or they can be greater than -1 and 1/6. So that's what that will look like. Tap check mark, see if you got it. Let's do another. So the first thing I did was I took the two separate inequalities, I rewrote them on my scrap paper, and I'm going to solve each of these for x. Just being careful, I do the work right, and I only reverse the sign if I divide or multiply by a negative. Okay, so you see on the right-hand side, I got the x by itself, and ended with -5/2, which is -2.5. And the other inequality, I ended up with a -10 is greater than x. I'm going to rewrite each of these so the x's first. I got to reverse the signs. And then I'm going to investigate and think which of these numbers is less than the other. I have a -10 and I have a -2.5. -10 is the least of those two. So I'm going to write that one first. It really doesn't matter which one you write first as long as you put or in between. So I'll pause and I'll type that in. So I typed it in. I'm just checking to make sure that what I typed looks good. All right, that worked. Now, in my number line, on my number line, I have a negative 2.5 on the left, negative 10 here, and I realize that's not correct because negative 10 is less. So I got to make sure the negative 10 is over on this side. So I'll need to make sure I trash that, hit the trash can, and oh, there we go, trash can. I want the negative 10 to be on the left. One of the most common mistakes is Get More Math will automatically whichever one you have up here first on the number line, but you're going to make sure you have them entered correctly. So negative 2.5, negative 2, and 1/2 is here. Okay, so make sure you take care of that. Now you have to look at an or statement. I want all the numbers that are greater than negative 2.5, not equal to. So I want to unshade it. So negative 2.5, anything greater than that. Or I have all the numbers that are less than negative 10, but not equal. So I'll leave that unshaded. I want everything less than negative 10. So that looks like this. So a lot of your or inequality solutions will be graphed going out. Now, sometimes you need to shade the dot and sometimes not, depending on if it's a less than or equal to, or less than, or greater than or equal to, or just greater than. All right, so let's check it. And so we got, all right, so do your best. Just be careful of reversing signs and double check before you tap that green check mark. Good luck.